Fairfield 911, where's your emergency?
Hi, my name is John Carter. I am calling. I know that you're not supposed to report a missing person before 24 hours, but my fiancé is missing. I can't find her anywhere.
Okay, where did you see her last?
I saw her at like 12 o'clock last night. She stays in a house by herself, so I'm really nervous. Her car is still there.
Okay,
her
where
purse
at?
is still.
Is there an address,
Yeah. Dorshire Drive.
Saturday, August 13th, 2011. 21-year-old art student Katelyn Markham is hanging out at her hometown in Fairfield, Ohio with a friend and her 22-year-old fiancé, John Carter. By 2011, Carter and Markham have been together for 6 years, and though they aren't living together, Carter spends quite a bit of time at his fiancé's.
Me and John are making a video.
In her online art gallery, Markham introduces herself with just 2 words: "I'm snarky."
Hi, this is Katelyn Markham. This is my very professional webpage. I hope you enjoy it because I enjoyed making it and I love you.
But her dad, Dave Markham, and younger sister Allie see her as a free-spirited artist, a film enthusiast, someone who sings along to every song on the radio, especially if it's an indie music station. She is loved and admired by just about everyone in her life: family, friends, co-workers, and her dog, Murphy.
I'm in your face!
John Carter is the less outgoing of the pair, but for the most part appears to be a normal, likable guy. On the evening of August 13th, the couple is watching a movie, smoking marijuana, and telling their friend about their plan to move to Colorado that November. Markham chills on the sofa throughout their hangout until around 10:45 p.m., when her friend leaves to go to a party in nearby Liberty Township. Then sometime between 11 and 11:30 p.m., Carter also decides to leave. He says goodnight to his fiancée and heads to a friend's house in Hamilton. Or, at least, that's the story John Carter gives Fairfield police around 8 p.m. the following day, August 14th, when he calls 911 to report his fiancée missing.
She stays in a house by herself.
And you're out there now?
I'm heading out there now. I have been trying to get a hold of her, and I decided to go by her house to see if she was okay. And her car was still there. She would be at work right now with her car, which is why I'm really freaking out.
What's her name?
Katelyn Markham.
By the time he's on the phone with 911, Carter has not seen or spoken to his fiancée for more than 12 hours.
Where was she at midnight last night when you left?
She was at her house. She was going to bed. She wasn't going out to do anything, so she would have been in her bed. And I mean, I've been with her for 6 years. She's not deceiving, She doesn't.
Okay, and you guys didn't have an argument or anything?
Not at all.
Detectives search Markham's townhome and find that her purse, keys, and sketchbook are all still there. And just like Carter said, her car is parked outside. Her cell phone is the only thing that seems to be missing, besides her. To investigators, this is a strange detail. Through phone records, they discover that Markham's burgundy BlackBerry went dark at 12:06 a.m. and never turned back on. Police find no sign of a struggle at the home, and because her car is still there, it's clear that she didn't drive off. If Markham is indeed missing, she either walked off on her own will or left with someone she knew. To determine who that someone might be, Fairfield police want to speak with the people closest to her and the last person to see her. Police ask her fiancé John Carter to come to the station for questioning. He's not a suspect, just someone who knows about Markham's habits and friendships and who may be able to point the investigators in the right direction. But when he arrives at the station, police notice something suspicious.
Alright, man. I want to take pictures. Like I said, we keep asking about those. Again, it's just precautionary type. I believe you that it's from shaving.
There are several red scratch marks running vertically down the left side of Carter's neck. He tells Fairfield police that the scratches are from an electric razor. But detectives aren't so sure. They ask Carter if he's willing to take a voice stress analyzer test, and he agrees.
Is your name John Carter?
Yes.
Is today Monday?
Yes.
Do you know information pertaining to the current whereabouts of Katelyn Markham?
No.
Did you cause the disappearance of Katelyn Markham?
No.
It's not long after the initial police interviews that search efforts for Katelyn Markham begin. Throughout the first 2 weeks of her disappearance, missing person flyers are plastered around Fairfield, and several searches take place near Markham's home. Tim Miller, founder of Texas EquiSearch and advocate for families of the missing, arrives in Fairfield just weeks after Markham was last seen. Miller, Markham's friends and neighbors, and 25 Texas-based volunteers spend an entire Saturday scouring miles of densely wooded areas surrounding Markham's home. They don't uncover anything, but the search brings media attention to Markham's case. Her disappearance quickly starts to attract widespread attention at both the state and national levels. To keep up the momentum, Markham's family posts a $5,000 reward for information. Over time, that number would increase to $50,000, then $70,000, and eventually $100,000. But all the attention isn't just thanks to the impressive community involvement. It's also because from the very beginning, one suspicious character stands out to both law enforcement and the public.
Hey, John.
John Carter, Markham's fiancé. Suspicions around Carter's involvement begin to arise when detectives discover the scratches on his neck don't match the blade on his electric razor, and when the friend who was with the couple that Saturday night tells investigators he doesn't recall seeing any scratches on Carter that evening. And remember, that voice stress test Carter agreed to take in his very first interview? Those results aren't helping either.
I'm just really scared. I'm genuinely scared, and I don't...
What are you scared of right now?
Not getting Katelyn back.
Okay.
And I don't know why it's inconclusive.
Okay.
I'm more than willing to do anything else to prove that I'm not involved in her disappearance.
Okay. How about someone else? Is someone else involved that you're aware of?
I keep thinking about this character, but that's just been always in the back of my head since it started. I mean, other than that...
Well, I just to let you know, I just got pulled into this morning, so I don't have all the details.
Okay, well,
anything.
There's a very creepy kid named who likes to freak women out. Like, I have a friend named... He's tried to talk to her, and he kind of stalked her for a minute, and then she's like, leave me alone, and he left her alone. But he also did it to Katelyn. He's done it to a few other people, and I keep thinking, why aren't we talking to him?
You were there at what time? This was Friday night?
Friday night, I was there from around 11:30. I left at around 11:30.
p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I went straight to a friend's house, Jake, and then I went straight from Jake's to my house, and on the way from Jake's to my house, I was thinking maybe I should go over there and surprise her, and then I just didn't, and then I went to my house and just sat and watched TV, and I mean, my stepsister was in the room across the hall, my parents are in the room right next to my room. I sat in my house and I watched TV, and then I went to bed.
In the first 2 weeks of the investigation alone, investigators interviewed over 70 people. They're also able to corroborate some of Carter's alibi, like the fact he was at least with Markham that night. For over a year, investigators keep the little information they have close to the vest, and the public begins to wonder if Katelyn Markham's case is going cold. Little do they know that behind the scenes, the investigation is heating up. Detectives study Markham's phone records and see that some of her last messages are between her and Carter. His phone number is confirmed, but the records in 2011 don't include any actual texts. By the time detectives get access to Carter's phone to verify the contents of those messages, they notice some of the texts are now missing. Specifically, messages sent between 7:53 p.m. and 11:36 p.m. on Saturday, August 13th, the exact time frame Carter and Markham were together before she disappeared.
Okay, where did you see her last?
I saw her at like 12 o'clock last night. She stays in a house by herself.
Where was she at midnight last night when you left?
She was at her house. She was going to bed.
Carter specifically told the dispatcher he saw Markham at midnight, not that he heard from her. Despite his suspicious storyline, Carter is extremely cooperative with investigators.
And then you said that you went to Katelyn's. I drove there and walked up to her door, knocked around 7:30, 8 o'clock. She let me in and we watched TV.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to her house, do you typically, if she's home, do you knock on the door? Do you just go in? I know you have a key.
It's kind of a toss-up.
Okay.
Sometimes I just walk in if she knows I'm going to be there at that time, and if she doesn't, I knock.
Okay.
She was on her computer, like, pretty much the majority of the time I was there, too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When you guys are all sitting there and you're talking and everything like that, were the three of you watching Batman, or was Batman just you and Katelyn beforehand?
Batman had started before I got there.
Okay.
So Brad showed up after I got there, and we were just kind of watching it, kind of in the side view, and she started to get on her computer, and then Brad showed up, and then we were talking, and then all of a sudden something in Batman caught her eye, and we're just like kind of watching it for a minute, and then we get back to talking, and that's how it kind of.
When you're saying we're talking, are all three of you talking, or
Mostly just me.
If it's true he arrived at Markham's townhome between 7:30 and 8 p.m., detectives find it strange that the couple was still messaging at 7:53 p.m., especially because he states he was mostly talking to their friend. The last text sent from Markham's phone at 11:36 p.m. isn't lining up with what Carter says happened later either.
You are driving to Jake's house.
Mm-hmm.
How far of a drive is it typically from Jake's? I kind of have an idea in my head, but how
I'd
long does
say
it take you to get
between
from?
15-20 minutes,
And are you,
if that.
Are you shooting up?
The way I go is
Yeah.
I take River, and then I get onto what's that? Right off the river, literally. And then I go onto 2nd Street
Okay.
and take 2nd Street all the way down to Race towards the end.
Okay, so if we're guessing about how long does that take, do you think, to get there?
I want to say between 15 and 20 minutes, but sometimes, depending on how fast
Right.
you go.
Well,
so it
sure.
could be a little sooner,
Okay. Okay. While you're driving, what are you doing? Are you texting? Are you talking? What are you thinking about? What's going on with you? You got 15, 20 minutes. I know I zone out and listen to music.
Yeah, I just was listening to music. I didn't have any text messages, I don't think. I don't really remember specifically the drive,
Okay, but nothing that, like I said, nothing that's sticking out and nothing that you're
because
having any kind of conversation.
after I had burnt the documents, I had texted Katelyn they're burned, and that was, as far as I can remember, the first text message of the night since I left Katelyn.
Carter claims his fiancée asked him to burn a bag of personal and financial documents that night in preparation for their move to Colorado. She didn't want to take them, but worried someone might end up with their personal information if she threw them away. Carter agreed to get rid of them. But to investigators, that seemed like a strange bullet point to add to your late-night to-do list. In other words, Carter claims he left Markham's townhome at around 11:30, drove 15 to 20 minutes into Hamilton County, started a fire, burned a large bag of documents for his fiancée, and sent her a text, all by 11:36 p.m. Detectives wonder if Carter deleted messages between him and Markham to tidy up his timeline.
I have individual messages, single messages that are deleted within people.
Maybe it does the auto-delete. Maybe if I have so many messages, it just deletes the oldest message. I really have no idea because I did not go in and delete individual messages.
I guess, again, with Katelyn, which is confusing then, is in between the two downloads is, in the first download, there's one message between the two of you. And I know, like I said, I know we've talked about some of this before. There's one message from Katelyn. But then when we download it again, it's gone. That whole one message is gone.
I'm not a phone mastermind. I don't really know anything beyond what a normal person would know about a smartphone.
Okay.
So, and honestly, I don't even think I know how to delete a single message. As far as I know, the only way to delete a message is to delete the whole thread. I've never gone through and deleted individual messages.
John, what's really important about this is that you don't really delete anything before or after, but during the time period, you delete a whole bunch of stuff.
I don't know. I really don't. I'm sorry.
If
I did not. I had nothing to hide from either one of you, I told you about all the drugs, I told you about all the things that I did, so deleting anything did not matter to me, you know. I wasn't deleting anything individually, I wasn't deleting anything on purpose or, you know, whatever. I don't know how that occurred, I don't understand it myself, I promise.
Were you, after you left the police department here, let's Sunday, let's say I know we're going back in time, but that was a Sunday, and you left here, did you start looking through your phone and looking back through your messages with her? Anything like that?
I mean, I looked at them occasionally, you know, after the fact, of course. I mean, I wanted to see our conversations and things like that, but, you know, a lot of times it just made me cry. And all I did was, you know, just read them and get really sad and, you know, a lot of time, I mean, most of the time I just spent in my room being sad and crying.
As sad as Carter says he doesn't seem to show any emotion in front of investigators. And he still can't explain the missing messages. But without a confession or physical evidence, investigators are at somewhat of a standstill. Until April of 2013, about 20 miles west of Markham's townhome in Fairfield, an Indiana man is searching for scrap metal in a wooded area near Big Cedar Creek when he stumbles upon something he'll never forget: a human jawbone. After a little looking around, the man realizes he's not looking at one bone, but nearly an entire skeleton, including a human skull wrapped inside a plastic grocery bag. Other than a few clumps of brown hair, he can tell the remains are completely decomposed. He calls law enforcement, and a team of investigators are able to recover 95% of the body. But whose body is it? The remains are found in Cedar Grove, Indiana, a town 0.2 of a mile wide. It had a population of fewer than 160 people in 2012. If someone local was missing, surely the police would know about it. But no one was missing in Cedar Grove. That leaves investigators to try to connect the remains to missing people in surrounding areas, like Fairfield. After just a few days, the skeletal remains are confirmed to belong to almost 22-year-old Katelyn Markham. Even with this new discovery, the case is far from open and shut. The fact that the remains are discovered across state lines makes the investigation all the more difficult. The bones are passed back and forth for testing between Hamilton County, Ohio, and where they were discovered in Franklin County, Indiana. Other evidence, like items found in Katelyn's home, is held by Fairfield police. The coroner quickly rules Markham's death a homicide, but her family, friends, and the public wouldn't learn the details for some time. Not until someone comes clean about what really happened the weekend Katelyn Markham disappeared.
You didn't spend the night with her on Friday night?
I don't think so.
And then Saturday, tell me.
I don't remember if it was Friday or Saturday night that we were right there.
Well, thank you. If it was Saturday, then that is the night that she went missing.
I'm pretty sure then it was Friday.
Okay.
So then Saturday night.
What'd you do Saturday, if you remember?
We pretty much, she had some homework and stuff to do, so she was on her computer, you know, typing away, and we invited our friend over, and me, her, sat and hung out, and
who's
it was actually a friend she met at Panera.
So it was her friend, but...
Yeah, but we were cool too. I mean, we sat and talked a lot and stuff like that. Let me go back a little bit again. She had to move out of her dad's house, like I said. So she was packing everything up, like getting everything ready, and she had old bills and records that she was putting together that she didn't want anymore. My mom suggested to her that she burn them. So after I was leaving her house that night, she said, I have this bag, and it was an American Eagle bag full of just papers and documents and bills and stuff. So I took, she was like, will you take these and put them in your car and, you know, get rid of them so that we can, you know, so that I can get everything over to your mom's. So I took the bag, I brought it over to my friend's house who has a fire pit, put it in there, set it on fire, and burned them. You know, that's what she wanted to do, and I, you know, didn't care. after that was done, you know, I just went back inside, hung out with my friends for a while, a couple hours. It was probably there late, like early morning, like 2, 3, 4, somewhere around there. No, it was probably like 12, 1, 2.
Okay.
I went home after my friends. I watched some TV, which was like on my computer. I just like watched some, I think I watched White Collar, which is one of the shows I really like to watch. And I watched that till really early in the morning, and then I went to bed. I mean, that's kind of how my nights were.
Carter tells police that after staying up so late, he slept all day and didn't wake up until it was time to go to work at 4 p.m. Usually his fiancée would call him, tell him to wake up and stop being lazy. On August 14th, 2011, she didn't. But he didn't mind, or at least not at first.
I'm just assuming at this point that she's at work and she can't talk. Then it gets to a point where it hits about 7 o'clock, and that's when she was supposed to get out of work at that time.
Still nothing.
So I still got nothing, and I'm calling her, and finally I just get to a point where I go to my manager. I'm like, look, something's wrong. It's 7 o'clock. She should be answering. I have to go see what's going on.
That's when Carter says he drives to Markham's townhome on Dorshire Drive. He pulls in the parking lot and unlocks the door with a key.
I immediately use the key, unlock it, go in, and I start calling for her. You know, Katelyn, where are you? Katelyn. I run upstairs, her purse is still on her bed, and her sheets and stuff are all strewn about. There's dog crap all over the floor from her dog, who normally does not get put in her room. And her phone's not there. I just see I look at the bed, I look in her purse, I look down at the phone cord. Like, this stuff is happening, like, I'm like hyper aware, because I'm like, where am I?
Despite Carter's insistence that everything was fine leading up to his fiancée's disappearance, investigators have received conflicting statements from people close to Markham. On the evening of August 12th, the Friday before she disappeared, Markham and Carter went to the Sacred Hearts Festival, a fundraiser for a local Catholic elementary school. And that's when things allegedly started to go south. The festival had games, food, drinks, and a raffle. The winner of the raffle would split the cash prize with the school, but Carter thought it would be a great way for the couple to make some extra cash for their move to Colorado.
I believe that night, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess Allie was there, her sister was there?
That particular night.
Was Allie there with some friends? Or was
I
it just,
think
or was
so,
it
but
just,
we didn't go, I didn't go inside.
so you stayed outside?
Yeah.
Was it one of those deals where you guys go to her townhouse and Allie's there and you guys like, well, this is not cool. I think after you guys left her townhouse, you guys went to your house.
Okay.
And you guys had, I guess you had like a little gathering of your friends. And I think you had like a little bonfire that night. I think she had work the next day, which was going to be Saturday, the 13th. And I think you took her home, back to her townhouse.
Yeah, probably dropped her off.
Okay. And then you went back to your house on West Iota. Mm-hmm. And you, at that point in time, I guess some of your friends were still there. I think it was a couple of people that were still there.
Maybe.
I think John Palmerton was one of them. There was another guy there, and I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
Maybe
Matt or something.
Right.
People close to Markham tell investigators she wasn't happy the night of the festival, so she asked Carter to drive her home early. He agreed. They got into his red Ford Focus and drove to Markham's townhome, where he dropped her off. Things didn't seem to improve overnight. Both Markham and Carter seemed off that evening. According to another friend, something about Carter's demeanor seemed strange on Sunday too, the day he realized he couldn't get a hold of his fiancée and dialed 911.
Well, when I talked to Matthew, and that's 7:22 in the evening, he says you guys basically have a casual conversation. You know, he says his statement is that you pull in the driveway, you go through the house. He said he really didn't hear anything open and closing. He hears going up the steps, and then in that conversation, you just casually say, "Hey, have you seen Katelyn? Katelyn's missing. I don't know where she's at." And then you They end the
In the
conversation.
conversation.
What happens between 7:22 and 7:30 when you get a hold of Dave's and say she's missing?
I mean, there was nothing apart from the fact that things started to not add up, that was out of place.
All right. Yeah, over time, obviously, we've talked to a bunch of people. A couple people have said, and again, I know you have said that you and your relationship with Katelyn was a good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody fights in every relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. I know
Mm-hmm.
that.
Right.
No doubt. Several people that we've talked to have said that something was up with Katelyn that last week, up until saying that night that both of you seemed a little off even, but not.
I mean, she was stressed because of school, and when she got stressed, she was distant and things like that.
But from what everybody else is saying and what they're telling us is that she had something a whole lot deeper on her mind than just finals.
I mean, how can anyone really know that?
In fact, investigators have heard from several of Markham's friends that her relationship with Carter had been rocky, and for much longer than just the weekend of her disappearance. One friend tells law enforcement that Markham reportedly expressed feeling trapped in her engagement for 3 to 6 months before she went missing.
If she was forthcoming with you about problems she had with you, then why would she tell these other people that she had problems and not say anything to
I
you?
don't know. That's on her. It's a question for her. I really don't know.
A question for her, but Markham isn't here for investigators to ask. Her friends say she was deeply bothered by Carter's habitual drug use and the amount of pornography that he watched.
Did she know you looked at porn?
Yeah. She's, when I first got my Mac, when I had it before it got stolen, she found my porn. This is the first time she ever found out that I looked at porn. She found my porn and apparently watched it with one of her friends for a little while and laughed at it and all that stuff. And I was like, she's gonna be mad at me, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I don't really care. You know, if you gotta deal with that, deal with it. And I guess to her it was like, you know, it was a means to an end.
Markham's close friends disagree. They tell investigators that Markham did care, especially when Carter began asking her to perform sexual acts that made her feel uncomfortable. And as investigators would later find out, Carter didn't just look at porn. He regularly spent hours on various sites and developed what appeared to be a serious habit.
Now that time has gone on, 9 months-ish or so, if you were in my shoes, what would you consider, or what would you have thought happened to her?
I don't know.
If you had to come up with something or ideas of what do you think happened? What do you think happened to Katelyn?
I don't know. I mean, I explained to you when I was here last, you know, that a lot of people throw theories at me, and I'm not a detective. I don't know. I don't have resources to, you know, search people, and I don't have the ability to do any of that. So,
is there anybody that's sticking out though that you're like, boy, that person right there is really kind of? I know we've had one guy. I know we talked about that. So other than that, anybody else that's sticking out that is close to Katelyn or close to you or close to
Michelle.
Yeah.
She was crying hysterically the whole time she was over at my house shortly after all this had occurred. She did not stop crying. She just continued to cry. And her boyfriend sat there and got drunk. And that was suspicious to me. Apparently, I heard, obviously this is a rumor, but I heard that she went to this bar that one of my friends worked at, and her boyfriend was just like, I'll kick his ass, I'll, you know, beat his ass, I know he did something, blah, 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 and just kept saying. And my friend was like egging him on, like, oh really? Tell me more about it and all this stuff. And I don't know, that just seems suspicious to me.
In nearly every conversation with law enforcement, Carter mentions someone he finds suspicious. A guy from high school, the friend who was with them the night Markham disappeared. Now, he mentions 2 more of Markham's friends. Carter even shared a theory of what might have happened to Markham in his initial call to 911 to report her missing.
The Sacred Heart Festival is going on right up the street, and there's a lot of questionable people there.
A lot of questionable people at the Catholic Church fundraiser? Police look into it, but they doubt it. After all, there was no sign of a struggle or any evidence that supported the idea at all. Every name and theory Carter gives detectives points them in a new direction and crashes into a dead end. Tired of waiting for answers, Dave Markham, Katelyn's father, hires his own private investigator in 2014. Then in 2015, Dave holds a press conference asking the Butler County Sheriff's Office to take over the investigation he believes Fairfield police hindered with some crucial mistakes in the days following his daughter's disappearance. Butler County agrees to get involved, and to the public's surprise, the Fairfield Police Department welcomes the agency who is willing to help them solve the case that has been sitting on their desk for the last 4 years. Less than a year later, Butler County makes a long-awaited announcement. Finally, they have a strong person of interest in Katelyn Markham's murder case. But it would take another 6 years for law enforcement to compile enough evidence to make an arrest, and the person in handcuffs isn't who anyone thought it would be. On February 7, 2023, 35-year-old Jonathan Palmerton is the first person to be arrested in connection with Katelyn Markham's murder. He's charged with felony perjury, meaning police have reason to believe he knowingly made a false statement under oath or affirmation. But who is Jonathan Palmerton, and why would police interview him to begin with? In 2011, 22-year-old Palmerton was part of John Carter's close circle of friends. Little is known about the details of the alleged dishonesty that put him in handcuffs, but small pieces of information eventually come to light. Based on witness statements, police believe Palmerton was involved, or at least in some way, in Markham's disappearance and murder. Palmerton's arrest comes after investigators execute 2 search warrants, one on Palmerton's 2011 residence in Fairfield, and the other on the property where John Carter lived in 2011, his mother's house, located less than half a mile from Markham's townhome on Dorshire Drive. The searches just don't tie Palmerton to the case, but they also confirm witness statements that contradict the story Carter has been telling police for the last decade.
Saturday night, August 13th, you go to your party with Everett Street, burn the documents, and you come back to the house. 2 people are walking down the street, and at approximately between what they say is 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the morning, they see, or they hear 2 cars coming, and they are juveniles at the time. They hide behind a tree, some evergreens that were in the area. They see 2 cars pull up, and the 2 cars, the lights are blacked out, and they see a red Ford Focus pull into the driveway at your residence, and they see a darker blue 4-door sedan right behind the Ford Focus. The red Ford Focus pulls into the driveway. Garage door opens up. They see the car pull into the garage. Garage door shuts. The blue car stays out on the street. Between 5 and 15 minutes later, garage door pulls back open. Car pulls back out. Both cars are still blacked out, and they go back the same way they coming down West Scioto, and they said they are positive what they seen that night.
The witnesses describe the driver of the blue sedan as a male with a messy beard and hair down to his shoulders. The witness's statement also helps investigators create a timeline to compare with data from Carter's computer. At 1:39 a.m., Carter's computer shows that he turned on Season 2, Episode 12 of White Collar. Over the next 2.5 hours, approximately, 2 more episodes play out. Episode 13 titled Countermeasures. Ironic. The computer data proves that the episodes played, but not that Carter watched them. Law enforcement has reason to speculate Carter might have turned on the show to create an alibi while his friend waited outside in the blue sedan.
Then later in the day, I guess after you've gotten up, you look at the plot summaries for the same.
No, I didn't.
It's on your computer.
I mean, I don't know why. I didn't look up any plot summaries.
But about 3:17, you look at the plot summary for episode 13, which is the one that you watched the night before, which just like maybe just...
I don't remember doing that. Did I look it up on IMDb? Like I don't normally do that, so I don't know why.
Yeah, there is a synopsis, basic plot summary for episode 13.
Okay.
And then plot summary for episode 14. Your computer shows activity at about, 139, 140, and then you watch some episodes of White Collar, okay? And you told me they're about 45 minutes apiece, okay? So you can see there's like time gaps between here. And then there's like a break in activity, and then again, yes, like you said, there's porn. I mean, whenever you got up, there's
Probably
porn.
looked at porn or whatever.
There's porn. And then sprinkled in there are like these plot summaries.
The search of Carter's mom's house also leads detectives to a paper trail that solidifies John Carter as number one on their list of suspects. In the basement, investigators find boxes containing Markham's portfolios and sketchbooks, a mug filled with love letters, and 2 things belonging to Carter: a black notebook and a red folder marked Climax Poems. I slit your wrists with a key to your heart. I know I will bury the body in the backyard. No, I'll bury it under the trailer and wait until the grass grows over it and leave before anyone reports it missing. Yes, that's a great idea. In a shed outside, police discover a roll of landscaping material similar to the plastic wrapped around some of Markham's skeletal remains. None of what investigators find looks good for John Carter, especially when they begin to learn more about someone Carter doesn't mention in police interviews: his dad. Investigators learn that Carter's dad owns a property on Kokomo Hill Road in Laurel, Indiana, about an hour west of Markham's townhome in Fairfield. Investigators drop pins in each location to take a look at the route from Katelyn's townhome to Carter's dad's property. Right about the halfway point between Laurel and Fairfield, they see a name of a very small, very familiar town: Cedar Grove, Indiana, where Katelyn Markham's remains were found in 2013.
I've taken a few people out there. I've taken Matt, Jeff, almost everyone. Different times. But, to tell you the truth, like I said, I pretty much always used a map because it was always confusing. It was always confusing to drive through Indiana. But I also would just use my dad's directions at the same time sometimes if I remembered it, because he would drive out there and then I'd be like, oh yeah, I went out there not that long ago, I could remember. But for the most part, yeah, didn't really go out there that often. It's like, especially by myself.
It doesn't seem that there would be a lot of possibilities of this type of crime,
outside of like immediate friends? Is that
outside of a small group of people. And then the body is found in Indiana. That doesn't seem like that would be some random person or random crime.
It's quite the coincidence then that in 12 years of communicating with investigators, Carter has never mentioned that the road where his fiancé's remains were found is located along the route to his dad's property. It would be right there on the map he claims to have used. Cell tower data gives detectives even more reason to believe Carter was headed towards his dad's property the night Markham went missing. They also suspect Katelyn Markham and Carter's friend John Palmerton may have gone with him, but only 2 of the 3 returned to Fairfield that night. Investigators may not have physical evidence placing Carter in Cedar Grove, but they think they finally have enough circumstantial evidence to bring the case to a grand jury. On March 22, 2023, 11 years, 7 months, and 11 days after Katelyn Markham was last seen, the world sees John Carter the way many have always pictured him, in handcuffs.
You're welcome, sir.
I greatly appreciate it.
Happy to help.
Oh, you want this? Yeah.
You want the watch too?
Yeah.
That's hooked to it.
Forest Park.
You got nothing else on you? Ready to like that? Nothing in your drawers? No.
Actually, 119.
Go up first.
So you guys taking the Forest Park?
I'm not sure what we're doing with these yet. Just find out here. Sorry.
Footage of Carter in the backseat of a police cruiser quickly begins to circulate on social media and in the news cycle. After more than 10 years, Katelyn Markham's family finally gets their first glimpse of justice. Law enforcement also begins to release the long-awaited details of Markham's death. Findings from the University of Indianapolis Archaeology and Forensics Laboratory show an incised wound on Markham's left wrist bone. The injury is unlikely to be her cause of death. Instead, it indicates her body might have been dismembered. Testing also reveals that examiners found very little decomposition fluid or tissue on Markham's skull, meaning experts believe her body was most likely kept somewhere other than the wooded area while her remains were found on Big Cedar Road. And wherever they were hidden, they were probably there for a long time. Unfortunately, the case doesn't come to a close as quickly as prosecutors and Markham's family might have hoped. Even when confronted with an indictment, John Carter maintains his innocence.
David, you've been indicted, and
for what?
Murder.
Okay, but what evidence? There's nothing.
You're thinking of there's evidence that's got to be fingerprints.
No, I mean
there's things called circumstantial evidence.
Okay.
And there's a lot of, and I mean you've already talked about the circumstantial evidence, the red flags. That's circumstantial evidence.
Okay, but I had nothing to do with her death or disappearance or any of that. So
that being said,
okay. I'm listening.
We are at the point in time now to where this is where you need to come clean with what everything happened that night, because here's the thing, dude. I'm telling you, the whole stories that you've been giving, the inconsistent stories you've been giving them, being the police department, the media, and everybody else since 2011, it's come to a point now to where no one's believing the story. Okay, the whole story about the unknown suspect or individual who was at the festival following you and Katelyn to her house. No one's believing that.
Okay.
They didn't believe it when you first come out with it.
Okay, but that was just like a thought. I mean, like you asked me my theories and I gave you my thought, but I don't know.
You told no one asked you that question. That's the question you gave to the 911 operator day one. Okay.
Okay.
So that being said,
I thought maybe that could be a possibility, but I'm not saying that's my story. I don't know what the happened. I have no idea what happened.
John Carter's arraignment takes place in April 2023. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, he enters a not guilty plea. Shortly after his indictment, Carter is able to post his $1 million bond and walks free again. Also in April, John Palmerton is released on a $50,000 bond. He is ordered to wear a GPS ankle monitor and report to the court weekly until his court date. Eventually, the court date is canceled and charges against Palmerton are dropped. Just weeks before Carter's trial is set to take place, the prosecution comes forward with shocking news. They agree to drop the murder charge if Carter pleads guilty to the lesser crime of involuntary manslaughter. After striking a deal with the prosecution, Carter changes his plea to guilty and admits going with Jonathan Palmerton and Katelyn Markham to his dad's property on Kokomo Road on the night of August 13th, 2011. In July 2024, a judge gives John Carter the maximum sentence allowed under Ohio law, 3 years in prison. He's since been transferred from the Butler County Jail to the Ohio Correctional Reception Center. His expected release date is July 4th, 2027. He will be 39 years old.